When we talk about a narcissistic husband, it's important to understand that it doesn't begin with cruelty. No, it begins with charm. It begins with warmth. It begins with the illusion of love so strong, so convincing, that you almost can't imagine it ever being anything else. This is how it starts. In the early days, he will make you feel like the center of his universe. He will hang on to every word you say, laugh at your jokes, tell you how different you are from everyone else, how lucky he is to have found you. And for a moment, you believe it. You believe you have met someone who truly sees you, someone who finally values you the way you've always wanted to be valued. That illusion is powerful. It's intoxicating. It's what draws you in and makes you drop your guard. Because let's be honest, when someone shows up and makes you feel like the most important person in the room, it's hard not to fall for it. He studies what makes you smile, what makes you feel safe, and he mirrors it back to you. He learns your dreams, your fears, your vulnerabilities, and at first it feels like he's cherishing them. But later you find out he was collecting them as tools, as weapons, as leverage for the future. You see, a narcissistic husband knows how to wear the mask of love. He knows how to play the part of the perfect partner. Flowers, compliments, surprise gestures. He can deliver all of these in a way that makes your heart melt. And yet, underneath that mask, there is no depth, no sacrifice, no true commitment to your well-being. It's all an act, carefully performed to gain your trust, to secure your loyalty, and to lock you into the belief that he is everything you've ever wanted. This is why so many women stay longer than they should, because they keep remembering those early days, those moments of magic, that feeling of being adored. They replay it in their minds, thinking maybe it will come back if they just try harder, if they just love him more, if they just give him what he wants. But what they don't realize is that those moments weren't love. They were bait. The illusion was never meant to last. It was only meant to hook you. And the painful truth is that once you're hooked, once your heart is invested, the mask slowly starts to slip. The sweet words fade. The thoughtful actions disappear. The man who once listened to you so intently now interrupts, dismisses, or ignores you altogether. But because you've tasted that illusion of love, you crave it. You chase it. You hold on to the hope that the man you met in the beginning will return. And that's how the cycle begins. The illusion is the trap. It's designed to keep you questioning yourself, wondering why the relationship feels so different now compared to how it started. And instead of recognizing the manipulation, many women turn the blame inward. They think, maybe I'm the reason it changed. Maybe I'm not as exciting as I used to be. Maybe if I could just go back to being that person he fell in love with, things would be different. That self-blame is exactly what the narcissist wants. Because as long as you're busy doubting yourself, you're not questioning him. And here's the hardest part. He can always bring back that illusion whenever he needs to. If he senses you're pulling away, if he notices you're starting to see through the act, he can suddenly turn on the charm again. He can shower you with attention, send flowers, make grand promises, just to remind you of what it felt like in the beginning. And just when you're ready to walk away, he reels you back in with the same trick that caught you the first time. It's a cycle of highs and lows, of being built up and torn down, of being cherished one moment and discarded the next. That is not love. That is control. That is manipulation dressed up as romance. And the danger of that illusion is how convincing it is, how real it feels in the moment. But love is not supposed to be a performance. Love is not supposed to come with conditions, strings, or masks. Real love is steady. Real love is consistent. Real love doesn't disappear when it's inconvenient, and it doesn't use your vulnerabilities against you. So if you've ever wondered why it felt so good in the beginning and why it feels so painful now, the answer is simple. What you experienced at the start wasn't love. It was a mask. And the sooner you can see it for what it is, the sooner you can stop chasing an illusion and start remembering that you deserve the real thing. Because the illusion may fool your heart for a while, but truth always reveals itself. And when it does, the question becomes, will you keep living for the memory of a mask, or will you choose to stand in the reality of your worth? Once the illusion of love has done its job, once you're convinced that this man is everything you ever wanted, that's when the shift begins. And the shift isn't loud. It isn't obvious. It doesn't come with flashing warning signs. It comes slowly, quietly, and almost unnoticeably, like a shadow creeping in at sunset. This is where control begins to take root. At first, it doesn't even feel like control. It feels like care. He asks where you're going, who you're meeting, what time you'll be back. And he phrases it in a way that makes it sound protective. He'll say, I just want to make sure you're safe, or I only worry because I love you. Those words disarm you. They make you feel like maybe he's just being a responsible husband. But little by little, those questions stop being questions. They turn into rules. They turn into judgments. They turn into permission slips you're expected to ask for in your own marriage. And you don't notice it at first because the changes are so subtle. He'll suggest you shouldn't hang out with that one friend because she's a bad influence. He'll convince you not to visit your family so often because they don't really understand us. He'll point out how much time you're spending on hobbies or work or even your own self-care, saying, don't you think that's a bit selfish? And because he said it gently, because he wrapped it up in the language of love, you start to second guess yourself. You begin to shrink parts of your life to avoid conflict. And that's exactly what he wants. Control is never about caring. Control is about power. A narcissistic husband doesn't just want to share life with you. He wants to dominate it. He wants to make sure that every choice, every plan, every dream runs through him first. And the more you allow him to take, the more he will demand. What starts as small suggestions turn into expectations. What begins as advice turns into orders. And before you know it, you're living in a world where your voice doesn't carry the same weight it once did. What makes this control so dangerous is how easily it hides behind the mask of love. Because on the surface, it can sound reasonable. After all, what's wrong with a husband wanting to know where his wife is? What's wrong with him wanting to protect her? But the difference lies in freedom. Healthy love gives freedom. Unhealthy love takes it away. A loving husband asks, are you okay with this? A narcissistic husband asks, why would you even think about doing that without me? One gives wings, the other clips them. And here's what makes the control even more suffocating. It's not just about what you do. It's about what you think. Over time, he conditions you to anticipate his reactions before you even act. You start to censor yourself, silence your opinions, and adjust your decisions just to avoid his disapproval. And when that happens, the control isn't just outside of you. It's inside of you. He doesn't even have to say no anymore because you've already told yourself no. Think about how exhausting that is, living in a constant state of self-editing, measuring every word, every action against an invisible checklist of what will keep him happy. That's not partnership. That's imprisonment. And yet, so many women in these marriages don't even realize they're in chains because the chains are disguised as concern, as love, as protection. But real love doesn't suffocate. Real love doesn't keep score. Real love doesn't take away your choices under the pretense of keeping you safe. Real love empowers you, trusts you, and celebrates your independence. And if what you're experiencing feels more like control than freedom, then it isn't love, it's manipulation dressed up in a nicer costume. And here's the truth you need to hear the moment you start making yourself smaller so someone else can feel bigger. That's not a partnership anymore. That's domination. And the longer you allow it to go unchecked, the harder it becomes to find your voice again. That's why recognizing the subtle control early matters so much. Because once you see it for what it is, you can stop questioning your own judgment and start reclaiming your right to live freely. A narcissistic husband will always try to blur the line between care and control. He wants you to believe they're the same thing, but they're not. And the moment you can separate them, the moment you can say, this isn't love, this is control, is the moment you begin to take your power back. Because freedom in marriage is not optional. It is the foundation of real love. By the time control has taken root, something even deeper begins to happen. It's no longer just about where you go, who you see, or what you do. Now it's about what you believe. This is where the emotional manipulation begins, and it's one of the most damaging parts of living with a narcissistic husband. Because while control steals your choices, manipulation steals your reality. It starts with little things, small contradictions that leave you second guessing yourself. You remember him saying something harsh, but when you bring it up, he denies it. He'll say, I never said that, you must have misunderstood. Or maybe he raises his voice, but when you point it out, he calmly replies, I wasn't yelling, you're just too sensitive. And as these moments pile up, you begin to wonder if the problem really is you. That's gaslighting. It's when someone makes you question your own memory, your perception, even your sanity. And in the hands of a narcissistic husband, it's a weapon designed to keep you off balance and dependent on his version of the truth. The manipulation doesn't stop there. He's a master at blame shifting. No matter what the issue is, somehow it circles back to you. If he's angry, it's because you pushed him too far. If he cheats, it's because you weren't giving him enough attention. If he withdraws, it's because you've been too demanding. He flips the script so well that you start apologizing for his mistakes, carrying guilt for his failures, and taking responsibility for problems you didn't create. And the more you accept his version, the less you trust your own judgment. Another weapon he uses is the silent treatment. Days of cold shoulders, blank stares, or complete emotional withdrawal. It feels like punishment without explanation. And that silence is deafening. It's meant to make you desperate for his attention again, willing to bend, willing to compromise, just to break the tension. The silent treatment is not just absence, it's power. Because in those moments, he controls not just your actions, but your emotions. You find yourself wondering what you did wrong, how to fix it, how to make him happy again, instead of asking why love should ever feel this way. Over time, this manipulation chips away at your self-esteem. You start believing the lies. You start thinking maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe you do overreact. Maybe you really aren't enough. And once you start accepting those thoughts as truth, he doesn't even need to say them anymore because you've already internalized them. That's the cruel genius of emotional manipulation. It makes you the keeper of your own cage. But let's pause here, because this is where I want you to hear something loud and clear. If you've ever been made to feel like your emotions don't matter, if you've ever been told that your memory is unreliable, if you've ever been convinced that love has to be earned by carrying someone else's blame, you are not the problem. You are not broken. What you are experiencing is manipulation, not truth. And the fact that you can even recognize it now is proof that your intuition is stronger than the lies you've been fed. Real love doesn't twist your words. Real love doesn't punish you with silence. Real love doesn't force you to carry the weight of someone else's mistakes. Real love communicates, takes responsibility, and seeks understanding. And when you see the difference, when you finally separate manipulation from love, something powerful happens. You stop believing the lies. You start reclaiming your own voice. Because here's the reality: emotional manipulation only works as long as you doubt yourself. The moment you start trusting your own memory, your own feelings, your own instincts, that's the moment the manipulation loses its grip. It's like waking up from a fog. You begin to see clearly, and once you see, you can't unsee. You realize that you were never crazy, never too sensitive, never unworthy. You were simply caught in the web of someone who needed to control your reality to feel powerful. And when you understand that, you can take the first step out. You can begin to rebuild the trust you lost, not in him, but in yourself. Because that's what he was afraid of all along. He knew if you ever trusted your own voice again, you wouldn't need his version of the truth anymore. And the moment you don't need his lies to define you, his power begins to fade. So remember, this manipulation may make you question your worth, but truth will always restore it. And the truth is, you are not defined by his accusations, his silence, or his shifting blame. You are defined by the strength it takes to see through the illusion, to trust yourself again, and to walk toward the love you truly deserve. By now, you've seen how the illusion draws you in, how control begins to shape your choices, and how manipulation twists your reality. But there's another layer that makes the cycle even more painful, and that is the way a narcissistic husband uses affection, not as a gift of love, but as a weapon of control. In the beginning, affection felt abundant. There were long hugs, tender words, moments of closeness that felt genuine. But over time, affection becomes conditional. It's no longer something freely given. It's something you have to earn. He begins to treat love like a prize, rewarded when you follow his rules, withheld when you don't. It's no longer about connection, it's about control. Think about how powerful that is. As human beings, we crave closeness. We want to be seen, touched, valued, loved. And when you're in a marriage, affection is not just physical, it's emotional safety. But a narcissistic husband knows this, and he turns it into a tool. If you disagree with him, he withdraws. If you don't meet his expectations, he goes cold. If you try to express your needs, suddenly he becomes distant. And in those moments, the silence, the cold shoulder, the absence of affection, it feels unbearable. So what do? You try harder. You bend more. You shrink yourself just to win back the warmth you once had. This is how the cycle keeps going. He gives just enough to keep you holding on, and then he takes it away to remind you who has the power. It's like dangling water in front of someone dying of thirst. He doesn't even have to give much, just a few drops here, and there are enough to keep you chasing. And you don't even realize it, but you start working for love that should have been unconditional. What makes it worse is how inconsistent it is. One day, he may be affectionate, attentive, even loving. The next day, he's cold, distant, critical. That inconsistency is what traps you because your heart keeps remembering the good moments and waiting for them to come back. You think, if he was loving yesterday, maybe he can be loving again tomorrow. And so you stay caught in the hope of what he might give you instead of facing the reality of what he consistently withholds. This is not how love is supposed to work. Love isn't meant to be a test. It isn't meant to be dangled like a carrot on a string. Love is meant to be steady, safe, and present, even in the midst of disagreement. Real love doesn't disappear as punishment. Real love doesn't make you prove your worth every day just to receive a hug, a kind word, or a moment of closeness. But here's what happens in these marriages. When affection is withheld long enough, you begin to believe you're the problem. You think, maybe you're not lovable. Maybe you're not attractive enough, not kind enough, not patient enough. You start carrying the weight of why the affection is gone, instead of recognizing that the withholding is intentional. That's the cruelty of it. It makes you question your own value, when in reality, it was never about you. It was about control. And here's something important to understand. A narcissistic husband knows exactly when to turn the affection back on. If he feels you slipping away, if he senses you're starting to see through the act, suddenly he's loving again. Suddenly he's attentive, apologetic, romantic even. And for a moment, your heart leaps because it feels like the man you fell in love with has returned. But it's not real. It's a performance. It's temporary. And once he feels secure again, the affection vanishes. And the cycle continues. But you deserve better than scraps of affection. You deserve more than a love that disappears when it's inconvenient. You deserve more than being forced to beg, to earn, or to chase something that should have been freely given. Because here's the truth. Love is not a transaction. Love is not conditional. Love is not meant to be used as leverage to control another human being. And maybe the most important thing you can remind yourself is this: affection withheld as punishment is not love at all. It is control disguised as intimacy. And the moment you can see that, the moment you can stop blaming yourself for what's missing, is the moment you begin to reclaim your heart. Because real love doesn't vanish when you make a mistake. Real love doesn't withhold itself until you're good enough. Real love stays. Real love forgives. Real love doesn't make you question your worth. It reminds you of it, and you deserve nothing less than that. One of the most confusing, most exhausting parts of living with a narcissistic husband is the way he wears two very different faces. The man you know behind closed doors and the man everyone else sees in public. They're not the same person. And the gap between those two versions can make you feel like you're living in two separate realities. In public, he can be charming. He knows how to smile at the right time, laugh at the right jokes, and present himself as the perfect, attentive husband. Friends, family, neighbors, even coworkers, they all see a man who seems loving, supportive, maybe even admirable. He shakes hands, he tells stories, he compliments you in front of others, and for a moment, people might even envy the relationship you have. But the moment the door closes, the mask comes off. The man who just called you his rock, in front of others, now criticizes you for the smallest thing. The man who bragged about your cooking to the dinner guests suddenly picks apart your every effort. The same husband who appeared so protective in public is now cold, dismissive, or even cruel when nobody's watching. And the whiplash of those two realities is enough to make you doubt yourself all over again. Because here's what happens. You try to explain to others what he's really like, but they don't believe you. they've only ever seen the mask. They've seen the smiles, the charm, the public displays of affection. They look at you with confusion and think, but he seems like such a good husband. And that disbelief cuts deep. It isolates you. It makes you feel like you're the only one who sees the truth. And that isolation is exactly what he wants. Because the less people believe you, the more trapped you feel. This public versus private mask is not accidental. It's calculated. It's part of the manipulation. By creating a glowing image in public, he builds credibility for himself and discredits you in advance. If you ever speak up, if you ever try to reveal what really happens, he already has an audience prepared to side with him. And knowing that makes you feel even more silenced. You stop talking, stop reaching out, stop hoping anyone will understand. You begin to carry the weight of it alone. And yet, you have to remember something important. The fact that he works so hard to maintain a public mask is proof of one thing. He knows the way he treats you is wrong. If he truly believed his behavior was normal, he wouldn't bother to hide it. The mask is evidence of guilt, even if he'll never admit it. And that's why you can't allow the public performance to make you question your private reality. Because you are the one living with the truth, not the audience clapping for the act. But this split reality does something else. It wears you down emotionally. Imagine living with a man who can be kind and warm when others are around, then cold and cruel when you're alone. You start to wonder which version is real. Is the public husband the real him? And maybe you're just doing something wrong behind closed doors. Or is the private husband the real one and the public mask just a show? That constant questioning eats away at your confidence. And eventually, you stop asking which is real and start asking, what's wrong with me that I can't bring out the good version of him all the time? That's the trap. That's how the mask keeps you bound. But let me tell you, when someone shows you two faces, believe the one they show in private, because that's where the truth lives. That's where the real character comes out away from the eyes of others. And if the man you live with in private belittles you, dismisses you, or treats you with cruelty, no amount of public charm can erase that reality. What you experience in private is not invalid just because others don't see it. Your truth does not need their approval to be real. And the sooner you can stop comparing the public mask to the private reality, the sooner you can trust yourself again. Because deep down, you already know which version is the performance and which version is the truth. And here's the bigger truth. Love is not supposed to require an audience to look real. Love is supposed to feel safe, consistent, and authentic whether the world is watching or not. If it only shows up when others are around, it isn't love, it's theater. And you deserve more than a performance. You deserve a partner who treats you with respect, not just when it benefits him, but especially when no one else is looking. So the next time you find yourself questioning the gap between the public mask and the private reality, remind yourself of this. The mask may fool others, but it doesn't have to fool you. And you don't need the world's validation to know that your pain is real. You only need the courage to trust your own experience and the strength to remember that love without consistency is not love at all. After everything, the illusion of love, the subtle control, the endless manipulation, the withholding of affection, and the double life he wears in public versus private, there is one final, devastating impact that often lingers the longest. And that is what all of this does to your sense of self. Because over time, the most dangerous damage a narcissistic husband inflicts is not on your schedule, not on your choices, not even on your relationships with others. It's on the way you see yourself. Little by little, your confidence begins to erode. The woman who once laughed freely now second guesses every joke. The woman who once spoke boldly now whispers, afraid of saying the wrong thing. The woman who once carried dreams in her heart now feels too small to even imagine them. Piece by piece, the constant criticism, the gaslighting, the cold silences, they chip away at the foundation of who you are. And one day you wake up and wonder, where did I go? How did I lose myself in this? That's not an accident. It's intentional. A narcissistic husband knows that if you still believed in your worth, you wouldn't put up with his behavior. If you still carried the same confidence you once had, you'd recognize the manipulation for what it is and walk away. So he works tirelessly to break it down, to make sure you question yourself more than you question him, to make sure you're focused on fixing yourself instead of holding him accountable. And the heartbreaking thing is, you start to believe it. You start thinking maybe you are the problem. Maybe you really are too much or not enough or just too difficult to love. And the more you believe those lies, the harder it becomes to see your own reflection clearly. You look in the mirror and don't recognize the woman staring back. You see someone who looks smaller, weaker, worn down. And yet, the truth is still there, buried under the weight of his words. But here's what I want you to hear's your worth was never his to give, and it was never his to take. It doesn't disappear just because he tried to convince you it did. Your worth was there before him, and it is still there now. The erosion of self-worth may feel real, but what has actually been lost is your belief in yourself, not your value itself. And belief can be rebuilt. The first step is recognizing that the voice in your head telling you that you're not enough isn't your own. It's his. It's the echo of years of criticism, blame, and manipulation, but echoes fade. And once you realize that voice doesn't belong to you, you can start to replace it with something stronger, your own truth. The truth that you are capable. The truth that you are worthy of respect. The truth that you are lovable exactly as you are, without conditions, without earning it, without begging for it. And I know it's not easy, because when someone has spent years tearing you down, it feels impossible to stand tall again. But I promise you this, strength is built in the moments when you choose to believe in yourself again, even when it feels foreign. It's built when you start setting boundaries. It's built when you begin saying no. It's built when you stop chasing the approval of someone who only ever gave it to you in fragments. Rebuilding your worth is not about going back to who you used to be. It's about becoming stronger, wiser, and more resilient than you've ever been. It's about taking the lessons from the pain and turning them into power. It's about remembering that your identity was never defined by his treatment of you, but by your ability to rise despite it. Because here's the truth. When your self-worth returns, his power disappears. The cycle breaks. The manipulation loses its grip. The silence no longer scares you, and the mask he wears in public no longer confuses you, because you finally see yourself clearly again. And once you see yourself, once you remember your value, there is no going back. So if you're sitting here today wondering whether you've lost yourself completely, I want you to know this: you are still there. Beneath the hurt, beneath the doubt, beneath the weight of his words, you are still there. And the fact that you are even questioning, the fact that you are still searching for answers, is proof that your strength is alive and well. He may have tried to break you, but you are not broken. You are bruised. You are tired, but you are still standing. And that means you still have a choice. You can choose to stop believing his lies. You can choose to trust your voice again. You can choose to reclaim the worth that has been yours all along. Because no matter how much he tried to take from you, the truth will always remain: you are enough. You always were, and you always will be.